So just a warm-up question here. We wanted to find out a little bit about you and how you describe yourself. If you were to be writing the blurb of your autobiography, what would you say?
Oh my gosh, that is such a it's interesting, isn't it? Because we all, when we've got to talk about ourselves, it's a difficult one. But I suppose one of the first things I would describe myself as is I've been a fighter all my life, not just for equality and justice for people, but obviously for myself in terms of the challenges and the barriers that I've also had to overcome. I would say that I've always wanted to make a difference and be a voice to the voiceless. And where I am in my current space as a politician, it allows me and enables me to do that for the people that I represent and I serve.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So next question, could we ask what actually started you on your journey to becoming politically active?
So I'm going to kind of, there's a two-stranded approach to the way I'm going to try and answer that question. And it's going to be the intentional and the unintentional. So obviously unintentional, as I've highlighted before, my career has always been about rights and justice. And I've spent most of that in the disability rights sector. So through working for different voluntary organisations, policy campaigning, and also advising on rights and so forth. So there's always been that agenda. That's part of what I wanted to do in life. And even if I think back to my time at uni, I wrote my final dissertation on what was the Disability Discrimination Act and the differences that piece of legislation had in relation to the Race Relations and the Sex Discrimination Act, and the way that you could use a defence of justification to discriminate against a disabled person, all of issues that I just thought were wrong and unjust. So I've always had that degree of wanting to bring about equality. Now, from an intentional perspective, I say in life, I see life as almost like, you're on a court, and whatever court you choose, whether it's, team sports such as basketball or football, but we can either sit in the stands and be cheering people on, or complaining if your team doesn't do well, or you can actually get on court and participating in winning for your team or for the people you represent, or for better policies and so forth. So it's about getting on court and being active politically. And so joining a political party, and then started my career. As you know, I started out as a local councillor, and then obviously in 2017 I had the greatest honour of being elected as the Member of Parliament for Battersea.
Yeah, that was such a momentous occasion, for sure.
For all of us. And did you have any guidance or mentors or people that inspired you on this journey?
So I've always had, I think in life, everybody needs mentors, regardless of whether it's your career or, or in politics. And so in politics, I've had a few mentors, and I do now, and continue to seek out people that I want to learn from and lean into. I think it's so important that we have those role models and people as well to help steer you. In terms of people that have inspired me, I mean, Nelson Mandela is somebody who is a huge inspiration. I have a picture of him in my parliamentary office. And, I'll tell you a story. When I was 10, I received my first book about Mandela. And that's that really stirred up something inside me again about the injustice that was taking place in South Africa with the apartheid regime. So he's somebody that truly inspires me, just for his fight for justice, but more so and more importantly, when he was released from prison, and the journey of reconciliation and forgiveness that he went through I think is a huge example to the rest of the world, and a massive example to me as well.
Could you tell us about any barriers that actually potentially hindered you to your political participation, be they personal, professional, cultural, systemic, anything?
Okay, well, obviously, I mean, being a visually impaired woman, as you know, I have a condition called nystagmus, which is the involuntary movement of the eye. And so I'm registered severely sight impaired blind. So naturally, coming into politics wasn't easy in terms of my, because of my visual impairment and my disability. There were several barriers in my way. But I go back to your first question when you say to describe yourself. That's why I say I'm a fighter, because whether it was in school or college or university or in the workplace, I've had to fight. And so the fight in the political realm, you know, just bring it on. That's not to say, you know, it doesn't hurt and it's not hard and I don't get upset and I don't have a cry sometimes. I do, because I'm human and we have emotions. But, you know, I think the chat, I try to break down these barriers. I try to face these barriers, knowing that if I can help eliminate them, that ultimately will make it easier for those that are coming behind me, because we all have to do it. If you think about it in terms of race, you know, Diane Abbott was the first Black MP elected back in 1987. You know, she broke down so many barriers to enable people like myself to stand on the shoulders of people like her that have gone before me. Bernie Grant as a man, Paul Boateng, many others whose shoulders you can stand on, and they've had to face it. And the only problem is, you know, racism hasn't really changed much since then, which is a problem. So, you know, those are just some of the barriers. But as a disabled person, you know, I am never shy in asking for the support that I need or the reasonable adjustments that I need to enable me to do my job effectively. Because if I can't do my role of the work that I do effectively, then I'm going to suffer, and the people that I've been elected to represent are not going to get the MP that they deserve. So I have to be that voice. I can't be afraid. And I always say, when people feel fearful about anything, you know, do it afraid. Do it in the fear. Just do it. You know, don't let it stop you from doing what you have to do. And that's, you know, and that's hard. And, you know, sometimes I have to tell myself that all the time, because, you know, each time in life, as you know, we progress to different levels, and each level, when you're elevated to a new level, you know, obviously it's going to be challenging initially, isn't it? Because you've exceeded yourself, you're going to go to the next level. It's going to be harder. So you're going to need to draw on that inner strength, and you're going to need to like overcome some of the fears and the anxieties that you may experience in that space, but keep pressing on, because there's the next level that you need to get to.
And speaking of asking for what you need, what systems or funds were in place that enabled you to become an MP around the time of the trial?
So when becoming an MP, I'll come back to, but when I stood for local council, there was what was called the Access to Elected Office Fund, and which I could apply for funding to help me as a council candidate. Standing as a parliamentary candidate for the 2017 election, it was a snap general election, and there wasn't any funding streams that I can recall, and so it was my party that I relied on to provide me with support, and obviously the very good will of my amazing and incredible family, who you know went one step beyond to make sure to be an effective candidate, you know, many taking time off from their own work and things like that. At the 2019 election, obviously the Labour Party made all the necessary reasonable adjustments and provided all the support I needed to be effective during that campaign.
The Access to Elected Office Fund isn't in existence right now, is it, right now?
Well, exactly. No, and so, which is wrong. You know, it was a scheme that was, you know, fundamental to enable disabled people to stand for public office. And, you know, not that this will happen, but potentially if you wanted to stand as an independent, you don't have a political party or structure to fall back onto to ask for that support. Now, I believe government must bring back some sorts of funds. And, you know, as part of my brief as the Shadow Women and Equality Secretary, disability sits within that. And, you know, I'm really keen to ensure that, you know, we have to ensure that disabled people have equal rights to civil society as everybody else. And we need those funding streams in place to ensure that people can participate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, absolutely. So do you think your identities as a Black disabled woman, do you think they greatly influenced when you became an MP? So much you have tried sooner or not at all? Because you had mentioned that you've been fighting.
Yeah, I suppose I try not to let any of my identities, and the biggest challenge I've faced really has been my disability, because not being able to see has been more difficult than being Black or being a woman, and so that's probably been the biggest kind of identity challenge that I faced. Would I have gone into politics earlier but for any of those characteristics? I'm kind of a great believer in nothing before its time, and I believe if it's in God's plan, he kind of orchestrates to step into those realms, and if you're not supposed to be there, then you won't be there. So, you know, as a woman of faith, you know, that's kind of how I choose to see it. That isn't to say, though, that, you know, if you're not born in a certain class, I'm from a working class background, and, you know, I was raised by my mother on her own, and, you know, to the opportunities that somebody who was from a middle or upper class background weren't there for me. So there was more of a class divide or a class issue as opposed to my characteristics. They obviously play a part in it, of course they do. But it, you know, naturally, all of those factors will say something. But, you know, going into politics the age I did, I mean, I'm quite old now, but, you know, I've probably gained so much more lived experience that I can bring to the role as well.
Well, you don't look a day over 25, so...
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like,
yeah,
oh, wow. I felt like a grandma. I was like, yay.
Immediately love you.
Yeah, wonderful.
We love you too.
We love you too.
So one of the things that you spoke about, characteristics, and so, you know, for you, it hasn't necessarily hindered, well, it's not to say that there haven't been barriers, but it has, being someone who is a fighter, you know, there are certain decisions that you would have made in order to get to where you are now. So what do you think, for those who don't necessarily have your disposition, let's say, and want to become politically involved, what do you think are some of the steps that need to be taken to increase the political participation of the historically marginalised?
Well, you know, the fact that we are marginalised should be enough to almost encourage people. Being involved in your local party, whatever colour you choose to be part of, obviously red in my case, and would encourage many others to also be involved in our movement. You know, it's how you're involved in your local communities as well. And, you know, your professional life, if you have a career, or even if you are, you know, you don't have a career as such, you know, everybody's voices should be heard. And, you know, in a place like Westminster, in a place like, you know, being a member of Parliament here, you know, you want it to be a very broad and very diverse group of people, because that's how we do better. That's how we can hold government to account and, you know, call for good government. That's how you can be an effective opposition, you know, because there's a broad spectrum of voices in that space. If you're just going to have politicians of one shade or from one class, then what does that leave us with? You know, stalemate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so are there steps that you think, outside of individual kind of desire to make the landscape more diverse, are there steps that you think the government could take or local authorities could take to increase participation amongst the marginalised?
Absolutely. I mean, so if you think about it in terms of political participation, right, all political parties should be has a role and a responsibility to play in this. Government also has a role and a responsibility to play, as does local government and stuff. And everybody should be, looking into all of their communities and actually exposing to people different routes around civic duties.
Yeah.
So whether that's magistrate, whether that's, being a school governor, whether that's, being a local councillor, or, whether that's also, being an appropriate adult for somebody, or being a politician. If you're not exposed to those roles, you'll never know about them.
Yeah.
And so there has to be a degree of education. And, why shouldn't political participation and engagement not be taught in our schools? And I don't mean at secondary school, from a very young age, people be politically aware and understanding of the decisions that are taken that will obviously affect them in later life and throughout their life. Now, I don't recall being taught too much about politics at school. I just had a family that clearly voted, but very much Labour supporters and so forth. So, you get it from that angle. But, now the generations that come after me, and, if I have children and so forth, then I will teach them. But, there has to be a level of responsibility around the state in terms of, ensuring that people are exposed to civic duties and responsibilities that they could participate in. It shouldn't just be left for the elites to be able to do that, because I darn well am sure in certain environments that is what is taught.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, speaks to the point that you cannot be what you cannot see. And for a lot of people, you being a disabled Black woman is something that is so important, because it gives them an idea like, wow, actually, I can do this too. So again, thank you. So why do you think it is important that more women, and especially minoritized women, so be it through race, be it through ability, sexuality, etc., why do you think that we need to enter the political arena, especially now, especially during a time like this?
Okay, so a couple of things there. So firstly, because we need our voices heard, we need more women in Parliament. We're not 50-50 yet, I don't think. The Labour parties do, they're much better than others. We need more Black people in Parliament, because we absolutely aren't represented as fully as we need to be. We desperately need more disabled people in Parliament. I think I'm one of 5 or 6 self-identifying disabled people here in Parliament. But also, if you think about the crisis that we're currently in, we faced a global health pandemic and a global racial pandemic. Okay.
Yeah.
Those two things have literally collided during the past 5-6 months.
Yeah.
And so, we need to ensure that governments and policies are introduced to eradicate some of the institutional and systemic problems that society faces around inequality and racism. And if that isn't enough to spur people to want to get involved in their local communities and in their local politics or national politics to make their voices heard, or just become active in their community and campaigns, then nothing will. We will look back on 2020, because I think this is an absolute pivotal moment of change, and we need to call for change. And Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist, has the most amazing quote, and I use it all the time, and he says, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. And that, rings true today, because, those who have power in their hands, those that are in power, we have to make those demands of them. Okay? Look at the racial injustice within our education system, within the criminal justice system, within health. Because, we know that Black, Asian and other ethnic minorities were disproportionately impacted by this virus. And it's because of the strong inequalities that exist. It's shone a light on it, also been exacerbated as well. And that is why, we have to demand change. That's why the Black Lives Matter movement is so important. And that's why you know, I and the party stand shoulder to shoulder with those fighting for justice, because that's what we demand.
Fantastic. And just to this, I feel like, yes, I'm going to vote Prime Minister. So
yes. 20 whenever, I'm not even sure.
Yes. So moving to kind of more, I don't want to say a lighter note, but things that are perhaps more will bring you joy. What have been some of the highlights or most rewarding moments in your life, personal and political career? Because we're here to talk.
Oh, rewarding
Yes.
moment in my life. Obviously, that's a really good question. So for me personally, I'm a woman of faith, and so I'm so grateful for life anyway, in all its challenges, all its joyfulness as well. You know, we have to live with joy regardless of what we're facing. And I know on a daily basis that can be quite challenging. But, you know, being elected as a member of parliament, you know, 3.5 years ago, 2017, I didn't think that was possible, you know. And I've done that. And for me, that is a huge moment for me. It's a highlight for me as well. For others, it's come easy. But for me, it hasn't been an easy journey. And so I'm incredibly proud of that. And I'm really proud of what I've achieved in the role as well, both as Shadow Minister for Disabled People and really giving a voice to disabled people in the chamber from that dispatch box, you know, really holding that government to account. And I desperately hope that I can do that within my new role as Shadow Women and Equality Secretary. But more importantly, we need a Labour government so I can actually be the Shadow Secretary of State for Women and Equality, so we can really bring about the real change that this country so desperately needs.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, for us as the Triple Cripples, like when you were elected, that was certainly a highlight for us. It was a chance for us to see ourselves in a political field. Like, okay, Jumoke and Kym, this is something that is possible. So could you tell us actually, what are some of the things within the political arena that actually have you hopeful for the future? Is it the increased number of women MPs? Like, what has you looking forward and seeing a brighter future?
You know, what makes me hopeful for the future is that, well, first we always need to remain hopeful and have faith. But I think what really makes me hopeful for politics is, I do want to see more women in politics. And I do want to see more Black people in politics, but I desperately want to see more disabled people here in this well. So it's normal. It's not a new thing where we have to say the first of this or the first of that. It's just standard practice, because, you know, that's the hope for the future. But representation is so important, not just here in Parliament, but, you know, I want to see councillors, council leaders, mayors, elected mayors, you know, these things are all important. You know, we want to see more judges administering justice that look like us as well. You know, Black women, we have a different struggle, as we all know. And you know, we I don't know about you, but I was brought up to be told I'm going to have to work twice as hard because of it. You know,
of course,
and stuff. And then I can't see as well, so, you know, even harder and stuff. But that, I think, because of all of that, there's something in me that will drive me and will make me fight for it. Obviously, I think I've alluded to that. But, you know, that's also what we can bring to that space. And that's what I'm hopeful for. You know, and that desire and that relentlessness of just wanting to bring about change. Because none of us are in politics for, well, it sounds cliche, but, you know, I'm really doing this because I want to make a difference. And I know most people that come into politics, that is their driver as well.
And on that note, in terms of people coming in and trying to make a difference and that being the hope of the future, what are some words of encouragement that you'd give to those who want to enter the political arena, who want to enter the world of politics, aren't sure, maybe you're a bit scared, maybe you're worried about backlash, maybe aren't sure about timings and how your world will change and the visibility and all of those things that we think about, and perhaps who have just thought about it as a fleeting thought, but perhaps never thought that they could fit into the space? What are some words of encouragement you'd have for them?
So practically, so on a practical level, if you're going to do this, you know, try and surround yourself with good people who can encourage you and support you. And I always make myself available to that as well if I can. On the issue of it being afraid, I said it earlier, do it afraid. Sorry, do it afraid. Write that down, you know, on your wall or wherever, you know, put it in your phone, just do it afraid. It's hard. I know it's hard. And honestly, believe me, I experience hard days all the time, or bad days, but do it afraid. But my few words I would say is, you know, I tell people to dream big, dream big, dream the impossible. So at least if you don't get to the impossible, but you get to the possible, at least you've achieved that, right? But work hard. Nothing is coming easy. You know, work hard. We all have to do it. You know, whether you studied, you worked hard to like you wanted. In your jobs, in your careers, or your profession, you work hard to do your very best. And, you know, that is the importance. Many of us don't come from privilege. And that's what I'm talking to. We're the people that need to work hard and strive to be our best. And, you know, don't compare yourself to anyone. Live your best you. Be your best you. And you live your best life. And, you know, people say, you know, life is a race, right? But it's more of a marathon. It's going to take much longer. But stay in your lane.
Amen.
No
Stay in your lane. Yes.
Stay in your lane and run your race. And you know what? The prize will be there waiting for you at the end if you do that. You know, that's how I try and encourage myself and others to really push forward in this life and to really just lean into it. Do you know, I was scrolling through Instagram the other day and I saw an Oprah popped up. I don't know what it was, but anyway, she popped up. And, you know, you look at her and you just think, you know, she achieved, I don't know her personally, I don't know anything about her, but she overcame abuse and rejection and so many things. And look at her, you know, I don't know if you've all read Becoming by Michelle Obama. You know, she had to overcome and endure so much. And look at her now, 15 million books sold and more. That was back, I don't know when that figure was, but, you know, that's incredible. One woman being able, I don't know any woman that's done that. You know, that didn't speak out to be an author, just to share her life experience. And, you know, and she's very open about it not being easy. Now, if she's going to have tough days and challenges, whether it's having children or with her marriage or, you know, with her own confidence, it's not a bad thing to feel like that. But it's never staying in that space. It's pressing through and doing it afraid and just pressing on.
Doing it afraid, that's what we're going to take from this today. Doing it afraid. And I think that's how TC even came to be, because we had no idea. We were just like, no, something needs to change. There's no representation. We need to be represented in media. And so we'll just do it. We might get backlash, but we'll just do it, you know? And so it's...
Absolutely. And, you know, and that's why it's so important, you know, you guys said, no, there's no representation of us. We've got to do something, right? Because, you know, doing nothing isn't an option.
No.
You know, and I commend you guys, because at the end of the day, if you're not going to occupy this space, who is?
Oh, thank you. That means so much to us. And we just want to say a huge thank you for giving us your time and being interviewed by the Triple Cripples. And you've certainly lit more of a fire in us, and hopefully you'll see us on the political field at some point.
I hope so. I desperately hope so. You know, if you're not in you know, obviously I'm in the Labour Party and I would assume your politics might align, and, you know, get involved. If not already, you know, we can't sit on the sidelines and be critical of political parties if we're not going to be willing to step into that space and be part of helping to make that change and make it better.
And you said something key about all of the different roles that exist that you can enter, whether it's magistrate, whether it's local council, whether it's school governor, and people knowing about those things. And so those are definitely things we're going to take away and think about, you know, and it's been such a pleasure to hear from you, especially based on, you know, we're two Black disabled women, and hearing from a Black disabled woman who's in the political arena, who's been there, who's done that, who's doing it, who's making history, who is changing things for the rest of us, and so that we can come and others, young people can come and stand on their shoulders. Like, it's such a big honor. And so we're grateful for you making the time today.
Thank you so much.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. let me say to you both, look, when, I don't know when this is going to be, but when we go back to some sense of normality, I want to welcome you guys. Come and have tea with me in Parliament, and then we can talk about what events we can do. But let's do tea and do it nice for a bit. But yeah,
that'd be
please.
wonderful.
Thank
Love-
you so much for that invite. Yeah.
Absolutely would love that. And then also, you know, we can talk about how we can do events and just organise. This is your space as much as my space, and I want to be able to open it up to you as well.
Wonderful. Thank you
My
so
God,
much.
it's so
Like, I
cool.
think I might cry. So it's just like the generous spirit that Black women have. I'm just.
But it has been such, you know, I'll be honest with you, and I do lots of interviews, but this is one that I actually feel quite emotional. So thank you for just asking as well, because I've really found it I've really enjoyed it.
We've enjoyed it too. 3 disabled Black women in an interview. I'm sure we've made history somewhere.
I've got a photo of this. We need a photo.
Yeah, let's take a photo.
Who's gonna get a photo? Perfect. Oh well, ladies, honestly, I hope this is the start of something special.
We certainly hope so.
Yeah,
It will be. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.